aitah for flirting with my female friend? It started with a joke. At least, that's what I told myself the first time it happened. We were sitting in the campus cafe, me, my girlfriend Lily, and my old friend Zoe. The kind of trio that looked comfortable from the outside but carried a tension no one wanted to name. Zoe laughed at something I said, that loud, reckless laugh that made everyone around turn their heads. She leaned across the table, flicked my wrist, and said, "God, you're still such a flirt." Lily smiled, but I saw her hand tighten around her cup. Zoe and I had known each other long before Lily came into my life. We met during freshman year, to sleep-deprived art students who bonded over caffeine and sarcasm. There was never anything between us, or at least that's what I kept saying. But the truth is, there had always been something. An electricity that hummed quietly under every laugh, every teasing insult, every late-night text. When I met Lily, that current dimmed, or maybe I just forced myself not to feel it. Lily was steady, thoughtful, the opposite of Zoe's chaos. She made me want to grow up. So I did, and for 2 years, I believed I'd put that old spark to rest, until Zoe came back. She had been studying abroad, and when she returned, it was like gravity shifted. Every group hangout turned into her and me laughing too hard, finishing each other's jokes, sharing old memories that left Lily quietly stirring her drink. One night, Lily said, "You and Zoe have your own language." I laughed it off. "We just go way back, that's all." But the way she looked at me, like she wanted to believe me and couldn't, made my stomach twist. It wasn't until Zoe texted me late one night, "Can't sleep, miss our old conversations," that I realized the line between friendship and something else had started to blur. We talked until 3 a.m. about life, art, nostalgia, and how nothing ever feels as exciting as it did when we were younger. She told me her dating life was a mess, that she felt invisible, and that I was one of the few people who ever really saw her. And I said it before I even thought about it. "You've always been unforgettable." Her reply came fast. "Careful, you're flirting." I laughed, a nervous kind of laugh that didn't sound like me. Maybe I am. The next morning, guilt hit like a hangover. Lily was in the kitchen, hair messy, wearing my hoodie, making coffee for us both. She looked up, smiled, and said, "You were up late last night. Working?" I froze for half a second. "Yeah. Couldn't sleep," I lied. That moment, small, almost invisible, was the first time I lied to her. Over the next few weeks, Zoe and I kept texting. Little things at first, memes, inside jokes, but slowly the tone changed. She'd say things like, "You're still as charming as ever," or "If Lily ever gets tired of you, I'm next in line." And I'd laugh. I told myself it was harmless, just playful, just how it always been. But then she sent a photo of herself in a new dress, nothing explicit, but undeniably intentional, with the caption, "What do you think? Be honest." I stared at my phone for a full minute before replying. "You look amazing." She replied with a winking emoji and knew you'd say that. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Lily started to notice the distance, the missed kisses, the absent eyes, the way I laughed at my phone more than at her jokes. One evening, she asked softly, "Is there someone else?" I almost dropped my fork. "What? No, of course not." She didn't look convinced. "I just feel like I'm losing you to someone I can't compete with." And for the first time, I hated myself. Not because I'd cheated, I hadn't, but because I knew, deep down, that I wanted to. The breaking point came during a group trip we all took, me, Lily, Zoe, and a few others, to a cabin by the lake. It was supposed to be relaxing. Instead, it turned into a pressure cooker. On the second night, Lily went to bed early with a headache. Zoe stayed by the fire with me, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, eyes reflecting the orange light. We talked quietly about life and love and regret. And then she said, "Do you ever think about what we could have been?" My breath caught. I knew I should have walked away. I should have said something about Lily, about boundaries, about loyalty. But instead, I said, "Sometimes." Her hand brushed mine, slowly, deliberately, and even though I didn't move away, I also didn't move closer. We just sat there, not touching, not talking, letting the air fill with everything we weren't saying. The next morning, Lily was quiet. I don't know what she saw or what she felt, but I knew she knew something had shifted. Later, when we got home, she finally asked the question I'd been dreading. Did anything happen with Zoe? I said no, and technically, it was true. But she looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Then why does it feel like you left me there by that fire?" I didn't have an answer. Zoe and I stopped talking after that. Not because of guilt, though that was part of it, but because I finally realized that what I called friendship had become a slow betrayal. Lily and I are still together, but something between us changed that night. A crack that no apology can quite seal. And sometimes when I scroll through old messages or catch myself remembering Zoe's laugh, I wonder, was I really the villain for flirting with my friend, or just too cowardly to admit that I already had? Continuation. The weight of a spark. It's been 6 months since that night by the lake, and still, sometimes I wake up with the echo of Zoe's laugh in my head. Not in a romantic way, not anymore, but like a ghost sound that lingers long after the music stops. Lily and I never really talked about it again. We didn't fight, we didn't cry, we just stopped mentioning Zoe, like pretending she never existed could make it all disappear. For a while, it worked. We fell into quiet routines. Morning coffee, shared Netflix, silent dinners that stretched to long. She smiled when she was supposed to, kissed me when it was expected, but something behind her eyes had gone dim. And me? I became an expert at pretending, too. Pretending I wasn't checking Zoe's Instagram every few days. Pretending I wasn't relieved she hadn't blocked me, or that I wasn't curious when she posted a picture with another guy. Pretending I didn't feel that sharp, hollow ache every time I saw Lily watching me, trying to guess what I was thinking. One Friday night, Lily came home from work later than usual. I was sitting on the couch, half watching a movie, when she said quietly, "Zoe called me today." I froze. It was like my body forgot how to breathe. She said she wanted to apologize. Lily continued. She said she felt guilty for crossing lines. I swallowed hard. "What did you tell her?" "That she didn't need to apologize to me." "You did." Her voice wasn't angry. That was what hurt most. It was tired, like she'd carried this weight for too long and finally decided to set it down. Then she looked at me and said something you'll never forget. "You don't have to cheat to make someone feel unwanted." After that, something inside me cracked open. We didn't break up right away, but it was like we were standing on opposite ends of a bridge that kept crumbling beneath us, plank by plank. I started staying later at work. She started spending weekends with her sister. We texted less, touched less, and slept facing opposite directions. The silence between us grew teeth. And then, one night, I got a message I'd been both dreading and secretly hoping for. "Zoe, I heard you and Lily are having problems. Are you okay?" It felt like the past pulling me back by the throat. I typed, "Yeah, just complicated," then deleted it. Then typed again, "We're figuring things out." But I didn't send that either. Instead, I put the phone down and stared at the screen, the unsent message glowing like a choice I wasn't ready to make. 2 weeks later, Lily sat me down. We hadn't spoken much all day, but I could tell she'd made a decision. "I think we need space," she said. There it was, the quiet verdict. Not a fight, not tears, just resignation. "I still love you," she said softly, "but I don't trust you the same way, and I don't think you trust yourself." I tried to argue, but she shook her head. "It's not just Zoe. It's the way you hide. The way you pretend things don't matter when they do." And then she added, "You flirted with someone because you missed being seen. I get that, but you stopped seeing me first." After she left, the apartment felt too big. Every chair, every cup, every sweater she left behind felt like an accusation. I lasted 2 weeks before I texted Zoe. I don't even know why. Maybe to fill the silence. Maybe because part of me wanted to believe she was still there. The version of her that laughed at my jokes and made me feel like I mattered. Me. "Hey, just wanted to say sorry for everything that happened. Zoe, you don't owe me an apology. But are you okay?" Me. "Not really." "Zoe, then come over. We can talk." I stared at that message for a long time. Every part of me screamed that it was a bad idea, that I was repeating the same mistake. And maybe I knew that was exactly why I was going to do it. When I arrived at her apartment, Zoe looked different, softer somehow, older. Maybe we both were. We talked for hours. About Lily, about guilt, about how we both crossed a line we didn't fully understand until it was too late. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if we'd just been honest from the start?" I didn't answer, because I knew what she meant. And I also knew that honesty wasn't the same thing as redemption. I could have kissed her. I could have started something new, pretended it was fate, not failure. But for once, I didn't. I stood up, looked at her, and said no. I think we were always meant to stop right here. And I left. It's been a year since Lily moved out. We text sometimes, polite, distant, full of words that mean nothing. I heard she's seeing someone new. I'm glad, genuinely, because she deserves someone who doesn't confuse attention with love. Zoe and I haven't spoken in months. Her number's still in my phone, but I don't need to delete it anymore. It's just another name, a reminder of who I was and who I promised myself I wouldn't be again. Sometimes I think about that night by the fire. How close we came to ruining everything over something that wasn't even real. Just the illusion of being wanted. If I'm honest, I still don't know if I was the asshole. Maybe I was just lonely. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe both. But I do know this. You can destroy something beautiful without ever touching it. All it takes is a single moment of weakness and the belief that it doesn't count. Final continuation. The silence between then and now, it's been for years. I don't know why I still remember the exact sound the door made when Lily left. It wasn't a slam, more like a sigh, soft and final. The kind of sound that doesn't echo until much later. When you realize the silence it leaves behind never really fades. After she left, I did what most people do when they don't know who they are without someone else. I kept moving. New job, new apartment, new people. But no one really knew me, because to know me would mean knowing who I used to be, and that was a story I wasn't ready to tell. Zoe and I stopped talking completely after that night at her apartment. It wasn't dramatic. No fight, no guilt-ridden confession. We just drifted, the same way we'd once drifted towards something dangerous. For a while, I thought that was closure. Then one afternoon, out of nowhere, I saw Lily again. It was a rainy Saturday, the kind that turns the whole city gray. I was at a bookstore, the quiet kind, with too much wood and a little light, when I heard her laugh. It wasn't loud, but it was hers, the same soft, husky tone I hadn't heard in years. I turned, and there she was. She looked older, but not in a sad way, more grounded, happier. She was standing in the self-help section, holding a book called The Art of Letting Go. The irony nearly made me laugh. When she noticed me, her eyes widened just slightly. Not shock, not anger, just that flicker of surprise that said, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Hey," I said. My voice sounded wrong. She smiled politely. "Hey." There was a pause, heavy, awkward, full of all the things we never said. "How have you been?" I asked. She hesitated. "Good. Really good. You?" I nodded. "Yeah. Doing okay." Lie. I was doing fine. Maybe even content, but seeing her crack something open I didn't know was still fragile. We talked for a few minutes, the way people do when they're pretending not to notice the ghosts standing between them. I learned that she'd moved across town, started working for a small design firm. She mentioned, almost casually, that she was engaged. That word, engaged, hit like a quiet punch. I forced a smile. "That's great. I'm happy for you." She smiled too. "Thanks, as good to me." Then, softer, "He listens." It wasn't meant as a jab, but it landed like one anyway. We stood there in silence, and I thought about all the nights I'd brushed her off with a half-distracted aha. How many chances she'd given me to actually hear her before she finally stopped trying. And then she said something I didn't expect. "You know, I used to be angry at you for a long time." I swallowed. "Yeah, I figured. But not for what you think," she continued. "Not for flirting. Not even for Zoe. For making me feel small when all I wanted was to be enough." Her words were calm, but they burned hotter than any accusation. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, "for everything. You didn't deserve that." She nodded. Not as forgiveness, just as acknowledgement. "I know," she said, "and maybe that's enough." We parted after that. No promises, no dramatic farewell. Just to people who had finally stopped pretending they were still chapters in each other's book. But as I walked home through the rain, I kept thinking about what she'd said. For making me feel small. I'd told myself for years that my mistake with Zoe was harmless. That it didn't count because I hadn't cheated. That it was just words, glances, laughter. But maybe that was the real betrayal. Not the flirting, not the secrecy, but the way it made Lily feel invisible in her own relationship. I'd been so desperate to feel desired that I forgot the person who once desired me most. That night, I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos I hadn't looked at in years. Lily smiling in the kitchen, Lily asleep on the couch with our cat, Lily holding my face in her hands the night I told her I got the promotion. I realized I didn't miss her as much as I missed who I was when she believed in me. And maybe that's what guilt really is. Not wishing you could undo the past, but wishing you could go back and be the person you should have been. A few weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Inside was a wedding invitation. Lily and her fiancé. At the bottom, in small cursive letters, she'd written, "Thank you for teaching me what love isn't. It helped me find what it is." I stood there for a long time, the paper trembling slightly in my hand, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry, quietly, almost gratefully, because sometimes losing someone isn't punishment. It's the lesson you needed to finally become someone better. It's been a year since that letter. Zoe texted me once, just a simple "Hey, how are you?" And I never replied. I didn't need to. Some stories don't need new endings. Just understanding. I'm dating someone new now. She's kind, patient, real. And when she talks, I listen. Because I learned the hard way that love isn't about the butterflies. It's about the silence you can stand together without losing yourself in it. Sometimes I still think about Lily. Not with regret anymore, but with a kind of quiet respect. She walked away before either of us drowned. And maybe that's what love looks like too, not staying, but knowing when to let go.